I know this house, girly girl. There's nowhere to hide.
Okay.
It's a reunion.
It is
of
a
the Shitty
reunion.
X-Files podcast.
Sorry for the bad audio. I have the window open because it's a beautiful day, and yeah,
A beautiful day in Indiana, right? USA.
Good old Indiana. It's a really it's probably our last good weekend. It was like in the mid 70s, aka
Can you convert that to Celsius for me, please?
24.44 degrees.
Ooh, beautiful. We're roughly there as well today.
Nice.
And yesterday.
That sounds nice.
So yeah, I'm excited for this little reunion. We decided to do it because it's Halloween coming, and I needed some spook in my life.
Yeah, did you?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm just curious preliminarily, do you have a favorite horror movie, or is that something you even like fuck with?
No, I don't. Maybe as we keep talking, something will come to mind, but I was never into the genre really.
That's fair.
I liked scary movies here and there, but I wasn't like seeking them out or anything. What about you?
So as a kid, I was always like terrified of even the idea of horror, and then got into it once I hit high school because friends made me watch it, and yeah, I think I learned to appreciate it after a while.
But so you have a favorite one then?
I was like trying to think about this the other day because I was talking to Jeremiah about it. That's really hard. Like, because there's a lot that I think are really good and scary. I saw the movie Saw in theater when it came out, and that was a really fun movie to see in the theater with friends. We were screaming the whole time. It was a full theater. This is before smartphones, so nobody was like on their phone and distracting. Yeah, that's a brutal movie, but it was really fun.
Yeah, so I can tell you my experience with Saw. I was in my university house, like living with my roommate, and we were really stoned. And somebody said, "Let's put on Saw."
Oh no!
And I had never seen it. And
that's so brutal. It's such a brutal movie.
I lasted 2 minutes before I was like, "I'm out."
Not surprised.
I am not watching this.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I couldn't sit. I'd like, oh, yeah. I don't like. What do they call the gory porn? Like almost
they called it.
It's the glorification of the gore, like whatever that is. I don't like
torture porn.
Torture porn.
Hostel was one that was pretty like it was like Saw, but it had much less of a plot, and what it didn't like. At least Saw had like it had a pretty good twist at the end, and characters worth rooting for, I guess. I can kind of look past the brutal violence because I know in my mind I know it's fake, and I don't know. I guess I'm desensitized to it at this point. But that's fair that you don't have a favorite.
Do you remember the first scary movie you ever sat and watched?
Yeah. House of a Thousand Corpses, which is like it is a Rob Zombie movie that is also kind of like a torture porn movie. I had never seen anything that graphic in my life then, and it scared the shit out of me. But looking back now, as an adult, it's just kind of funny because it's super over the top, like violence, ridiculous shit. And Rob Zombie, that's just kind of his thing.
Okay. So it says it came out in 2003.
Yeah.
So that's the year that you saw it?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the Scream movie when it first came out on VHS in 1996.
Did that scare you?
Yeah, I was like 12.
That's fair.
But I liked it for some reason, and it was my first sort of introduction to scary movies. So I'm not sure what it was, whether it was the cast, like an instantly recognizable Drew Barrymore or something.
Well, because it's also like a whodunit too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's fun.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen it in its entirety.
Yeah. But I don't mind scary movies now. Keith is more into all media than I am. Mm-hmm. And so if he wants to watch something, I'll be like, I'm in, but I reserve the right to leave or not finish it if it's not my bag.
Yeah.
What was the most recent scary movie that you've seen for the first time? So not something that you rewatched, but
probably was it? Yeah, probably Midsummer, which I've actually watched again because I really enjoyed it. It's like more of a thriller than a horror movie. It's so hard to differentiate between those two. Like, what is thriller and horror over the other?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it was a good idea. I think it was your idea to watch some spooky, creepy X-Files.
Yeah.
And once I said to Keith that we were going to do it, he wanted in. Mm-hmm. So at some point, we can invite him in to talk about, but maybe we talk about the ones that we did first, and then we can invite him in after that.
Yeah, if you want to.
So I picked season 2, Irresistible, and you picked season 8, Roadrunners.
Yeah.
Tell me about your pick, and how hard was it to make the pick?
Wasn't that hard. It was honestly between that and like maybe a couple others, and I was leaning towards it most of the time. It's just one that always stood out as being like, as really like getting me the first time I watched it, being like, holy shit, you know? Yeah, it always stuck out in my mind. And I'm pretty sure I hadn't seen it since I first watched it back in 2001. Wait, 2002. 2001?
Good question.
2001, I think, because it's 804.
2000.
2000, right. Not 9 was 2001 and 2002. Never mind. But yeah, I remember that really sticking out in my mind. And it aged really well, too.
Yeah, it was a great pick. And we'll get there.
Yeah.
I struggled with picking mine because we didn't really establish criteria. I think we just were like, pick something
just
spooky,
something creepy,
scary for the season. And the reason I picked it is just remember feeling really creeped out, and was the same feeling again. So it held up for the pick anyway, of like how it made me feel.
That's fair.
Yeah. So it was season 2, episode 13, aired January 13th, 1995. Written by the sick fuck Chris Carter and directed by David Nutter.
Yeah.
And features the first introduction of a recurring character, Donnie Pfaster. And what I remember about it, held up the second time watching it this time, is truly just how creepy Donnie Pfaster is just as a character. Mm-hmm. Like just the voice that he picks, at the tone that he picks it at.
Yeah.
Is just spot on. He's not creepy like Victor Eugene Toombs creepy, but it's a different. Ugh.
It's hard for me not to be influenced too by Eugene Toombs' actor's history of just being an actual creep.
Yeah.
That just makes it extra creepy. But yeah, Donnie, for me, Donnie Pfaster is a little creepier. Probably because it's like, this could be a real person.
Totally. Yep. And you're right. Like, so this actor's name is Nick. I think it's pronounced Chinland.
Okay.
Nick Chinland. And I looked him up. He does not have a creepy background. So you're right. That he doesn't bring the baggage with him. Mm-hmm. In the episode, it's implied that he's in his 20s. Like when Mulder's seeing his profile.
Yes, I definitely.
Like, I don't know if it's my age now and being like, this guy does not look like he's in his 20s. Like he looks like he's in his 30s or 40s. I
literally wrote, he looks more like 38 than 28 because they said he was 28 years old. Yeah. And I was like, Can you not just say he's not? Why does he have to be 28? Come on, he doesn't look 28.
Yeah.
Lots of monologues by Chris Carter, as per usual.
As per usual. So I guess it was in the original script that he was going to be a necrophiliac, like
that's probably too far.
More depicted on screen, but yeah, Fox was like, you can't do that. So I guess it's just implied, and they were happy with the fact that he was a fetishist as opposed to a necrophile.
That's fair.
But I mean, I think you read between the lines, like they never took out the necrophilic. That's what's actually going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. It seems to be like more gritty and violent than it was in the first season. And I was wondering how prevalent it was on TV at that point to get into things like that.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
I thought the football tickets were a weird sidebar. You remember that at the beginning?
I didn't remember that happening, but yeah. I mean,
what
like,
a strange thing to write in there.
Right? Like, why is... I mean, Mulder watches sports and stuff, but it's like, why is he just randomly getting football tickets? You're right.
Yeah, it's valuable screen time. And they spent like 2 minutes on football. I don't know. Strange.
And then they didn't go?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I thought it was weird too. Scully seemed very scared and uneasy at the beginning of the episode for seemingly no reason. It's like she identified with the victims just out of nowhere, seemingly. She wasn't like keeping herself separated from it, and I was just like, I don't know is this their first one where they've come across crimes against like women her age or something?
Well, that's good speculation. I think it was because this follows closely on the heels of the Duane Barry abduction. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it was like Duane Barry episodes, and then there was one in between, and then there's this one. So I think they're playing off of that she's like triggered by the abductions. Or, I don't know, maybe identifying with the ages of the victims or something like that.
Probably, yeah. Because she's how old is she in season 2? She's supposed to be like 29 or maybe 30, right?
Yeah.
One of his second jobs he got seemed to be as a meat man.
Oh, I noticed that too. Remember you telling me that when you were a teenager that you had a meat man?
I just casually brought it up because I was like, "Oh yeah, the meat guy was here," and you're like, "What are you talking about? And what are you saying to me?"
Would your meat guy come in and open your freezer and stock it standing there?
No, but he would bring stuff in and like leave the boxes, but we would always unpack it.
Right.
But yeah, and we certainly wouldn't be like, the back door's open if we're ever not here. My God.
Was it the same meat man over and over again?
For like 15 years or something like that.
That's so odd.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's apparently a thing. I also thought that was so interesting. Oh, the hair scene is Creeptown. Like, it's well written in that.
Which one?
The one where he's picking through the garbage to pull her hair out.
Okay, I was like, was it the hair sticking out of his pillow since he's apparently stuffing his That's so disgusting. Hair is so gross to me. I'd rather deal with poop, honestly.
Really?
I don't know. God, like, man,
you'd rather be a PSW than a hairstylist.
Is so gross. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on the poop thing. Hair is just awful.
What about vomit? Where do you place vomit in the hierarchy?
Vomit, honestly, with as much as I throw up, it doesn't really bother me that much. Okay. Spit does. Spit bothers me. Spit and mucus, that's just pretty gross.
So hair is worse than vomit?
Yeah. Honestly, like a big clump of hair, especially if it's like wet, like hair that you pull out of your drain.
Yeah.
Like a big old clump. That's just That's just awful.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that scene was well written. I thought they were going to do something with the daughter of, like, he gets her hair out of the garbage, but then nothing additional happens with
They
that
like
family.
set it up as being like that he's gonna go after her, and then he just ends up going after Scully
Instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a red herring.
Yeah, and at the beginning, he's always seemingly going after blondes. And then the hair he finds in the waste basket is dark.
But yeah, he like changed his tune to redheads. And I personally I think I enjoyed the sequel episode Orison better, maybe because I watched that before I ever saw Irresistible. But I think it's a creepier episode overall.
I don't remember Orison that much. We might watch it this week.
It's its sequel episode. Like, he gets out of jail, I think, somehow, and goes after Scully again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Scully sees him sort of transform into a demon a couple of times? Maybe just once, but it's the
Jeremiah was asking about that. What is going on with the devil hallucinations or demon hallucinations? And I couldn't really explain it.
So do you think they're all in Scully's head, or
he's got to be projecting them, right? Or had she been abducted by Dwayne Barry yet? She had, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
So I did a little digging on this episode. On the Wikipedia, it said that Chris Carter did an interview, and he talked about that being Scully's perception of her deepest fears.
Okay.
But also, it was written loosely based on reports by people who had been kidnapped by Jeffrey Dahmer. That reports from those people say that he shapeshifted when they were being held hostage.
I wonder if it's because he like drugged them somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about Dahmer. Well, I know some about Dahmer. I know he has like a big resurgence right now because of that Netflix show.
Yeah.
I've not watched it.
Me neither. I don't know a lot about him either.
He would prey on men mostly, younger men.
Yeah.
Like do fucked up shit. Yeah. Cannibalistic shit.
Yeah. And I think is what makes this so creepy. Like, it's a monster of the week episode, but the monster is a human who could very reasonably be doing these things. And that whole sequence at the end where she's now kidnapped, he like opens the closet door and she's like tied up in the closet.
That was terrifying.
And then like, she's running through the house and hiding, and he's going after her, and he like calls out, "I know all the hiding spots, girly girl," or something like that.
Her girly girl. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. It's just, the creep holds up for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he pulls it off really well.
And then at the end, there's like a Chris Carter monologue with a bunch of photos of his childhood. And I wasn't quite sure what Chris Carter was referring to, because he had 4 sisters.
Right.
So like, what is he insinuating about his life with his 4 sisters? Like, is he cutting off the hair and fingers of projections of his sisters or something?
Did he always want to like play with their hair or whatever, and they never would let him? Or I don't know. Like,
I just thought it was odd. He didn't need that at the end. He can just be creepy on his own. Have
you seen Psycho?
Yes, American Psycho.
No, Psycho.
Oh, like the original with
Norman
like the
Bates.
black and white one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that at the end where they wrap it up and they were like just kind of explaining everything. It had kind of that ending feel to it. Yeah.
Anyways.
Wonder why they decided to bring him back.
Yeah, like
maybe it was something that Chris always wanted to go back to for some reason.
Could be. He is, I mean, ultimately he wrote it, so he is the sick fuck who put this script together.
Yeah.
We know what he fantasizes about.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I don't know.
Anyway, we'll get Keith's comments on this episode as well. Well, why don't we move on to, you want to go to his episode, Rush, or do you want to go to Roadrunners?
Let's go to Roadrunners and then wrap it up with Rush.
Okay. So Roadrunners was season 8, episode 4, November 26, 2000. Written by Vince Gilligan, your man, and directed by Rod Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
In the realm of creepy, spooky, gross, it was a good pick.
It hits most of those. Yeah.
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 Like
And
the creep starts building right from the beginning.
Very
right? Where
beginning.
she's like in this weird place and can't communicate with anybody.
And she just blindly trusts that guy, that gas station attendant. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, she has no reason not to, but it's like, Jesus, Scully, be on your guard a little bit more.
Yeah. I did think it was strange, though, so she's pregnant in this episode.
Yeah.
And she takes the gas can and she pours some gas just right into her hand.
She's like, gas? This isn't gas. She probably wasn't even thinking. She probably wasn't thinking at all.
No. But I thought that she'd maybe be more careful than that.
I mean, yeah, like I said, she had her guard down, like, from the very beginning.
Until it went up. And then once it was up, she was like...
Once she realized she was in some shit, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't understand at the beginning, and maybe you have a take on this, but the guy who's hitchhiking at the beginning, he is the guy who eventually gets the slug put in him, and he's on that bed the whole time. But why are all the cult members on a bus? Like, did they know there was a hitchhiker out there and they needed a new host for the slug? So they all got on the bus to go pick him up?
Didn't they? Well, okay, that's a good question. Didn't they mention in the Doggett, when he was doing his very legitimate and diligent research, was found that they had hit like a bunch of random places in the area, so they were probably just driving from one place to another. And yeah, I assume they were like driving out to kill that initial guy. And just happened to find that hitchhiker on the way. It's probably just happenstance.
So convenient. But then they needed a host for the slug thing, and presumably that man that they killed had the slug thing.
I was kind of confused about that because, like, excuse me, he seemed to be like kind of disabled in some way.
Yeah.
Like, was he actually disabled, or was he using those crutches because that thing was in his back?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
I was confused
but I thought
about
that was strange too. Yeah, me too.
Does the slug thing, does it like convert your brain into believing in it or something? I don't know.
I don't know. I thought it was a gross and interesting premise, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Not if you think about it too much. Yeah.
But so Keith and I were talking a bit about it. I was wondering, are all of the cult members under the spell of the slug thing? Like, is the slug thing
what are they getting
everyone?
out? Yeah, no, legitimately. What? Yeah. Why? Like, what's the background there? Why are they all obsessed with it? Right. Like, is it controlling them somehow?
Yeah.
I wrote that this was kind of like Ice with better graphics.
Mm.
And that it was all practical effects, and it had great effects in it.
Yeah, the slug apparently was animatronic.
You could tell, you could tell, especially when she like ripped the tail off and it was kind of like writhing. Yeah, that was good.
It was interesting to me that as a medical doctor, she didn't seem to give a shit about disinfectant. Like, she just reached into her pocket. She had like some sort of like nail clippers in her pocket or something.
Right.
And then she just puts them right in.
I mean, if you think about it, a worm in your spine, something like that is like more urgent than like,
fair enough,
something where you can like just take antibiotics for. But I totally get it.
I guess I was thinking she could have asked for like boiling water or something, but
or a flame.
They don't or flame. Yeah. They don't want her to take it out, I guess.
No, they don't want her to take it out. I think she was digging around in there when no one else was in the room, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, I made a note. Is the parasite controlling this guy, or did they brainwash him in a very small amount of time? And then to your point, why are the rest of these people brainwashed and cultish?
Yeah. And given Doggett's excellent police work, where he brings 4 cases that are similar, is this the slug every time?
Where did the slug come from?
Where did this slug come from?
I would like to think that it would be like, you know how like some cicadas like hibernate for years and years and years? Maybe something like that that's like hibernated for fucking hundreds of years and they found it. Somebody found it. I don't know. Maybe it like attached itself to an animal and then attacked someone else, like a human.
But we do know that Doggett shot the shit out of it once it was out of her.
I kind of wish he had like stomped on it and then shot it. Maybe like a nice gushy stomp.
Yeah. It was way bigger. Once it was out, it was way bigger than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wondered, like, maybe this is why William was so fucked up.
I had to, so I watched this with Jeremiah yesterday, who hasn't watched except a few with me. So I had to give him context. I was like, just so for context, she's pregnant, and he's like, "Where's Mulder?" And I'm like,
"Don't worry about
it. He's just abducted. Just don't worry about it." And then he's like, "Okay, who's the father?" And I'm like, and I legitimately had to be like, I think it's the cigarette smoking man, isn't it?
Maybe it's the slug.
And then he was like, fucking at this point, it might as well be. My God.
No, I think it did end up being the smoking man.
To your point,
anyway.
To your point about the dirty pliers, I made a note that literally said raw dogging the stoma with some pocket pliers. Because that's what she was doing.
Oh, and vice versa when he cuts out of her on that bus.
Oh, that was such a good scene. She was so good in that where she's like, "Cut it out!"
Oh, God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Imagine
that we had just watched Irresistible and she was like running through a house after an abduction. And now this one where she's like tied to a bed and there's like a slug in her back. I'm like, this poor woman.
Just so many years going through so much trauma.
Trauma bonding, right? Mm-hmm. That's why her and Mulder ultimately ended up together.
Honestly. But then
trauma
not.
Bonding. Yeah. But then, yeah. Remember, she's pregnant at the end again.
Wait.
The end of season 11.
See, I blocked that out. That is blocked out, man.
Yeah.
My goodness. But yeah, God, and then yeah, she was just off her guard this whole episode. She giving away her gun to the guy.
That was dumb. Why did she give the gun away?
It's fun. Why?
Made no sense.
Oh, when she pulls up to the gas station, she just pulls up and honks. Like, and I was wondering if that's because it's like a place that fills up for you. Like, why is she pulling up and honking?
Yeah, good point. I did note that I really liked her green shirt. Like, that color of green just looks great on her. With the
Especially
hair.
with the red hair. Yeah, that looks great. Kudos to Jillian for putting up with red hair dye for so fucking long.
Yeah.
Yeah, great practical effects all throughout this whole thing. This one made me want to watch, what's the one where they're driving and Mulder can't go below a certain speed?
Oh, Drive?
Is it Drive? Okay. Yeah, that made me want to watch Drive, another Vince Gilligan one.
Mm. I do like Doggett in this one, though. Like, if this is season 4 of episode 8, if we weren't sure that Doggett's a good guy before now, like, we're there with this episode, except he gives her a little bit of shit at the end, where she's like, "I'm sorry for doing this without you."
He's like, fucked up. It's like,
but you should be sorry.
It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair though. He kept it honest with her at least. I don't know. I have to like be a little kinder to him because I hated him so much when he came on. But also, can we just talk about the intro? How bad that shot is of David falling into the abyss of the what?
It's
What
not
are
good.
y'all doing with that?
I know.
It's like just reminding us that he's not there. Like,
Yeah.
fuck off.
But there's so many ways to do that. Like, why is he like?
I remember that looking bad then.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up.
It didn't then.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, Doggett did some great detective work. I was like, okay.
It was a little bit odd though that he knew that those two people were lying, like when he goes to the town.
I feel like that was just supposed to like exhibit just like that seemed like some cop shit. Like someone
He's
who's
just
been
an amazing
cop for a while. Wasn't he a cop before? Or...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I feel like that was what that was about, just like knowing people and knowing how people act. But that's fair. It was like, oh, you just know that they're lying? I mean, it's convenient, to be fair, but...
Yeah, very convenient. And when she knocked over the kerosene lamp and he's outside having that conversation, the light from the fire doesn't like flash through the window or anything. I just thought that was like unnecessary.
Yeah, there was never any resolution with that. Was there? That house didn't burn down or anything.
No, the guy was able to put it out.
With like a blanket?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But overall, I was sufficiently creeped out by this episode, and it was a great pick.
Yeah, it's definitely one that always stuck with me. Do you know Resident Evil 8? Are you familiar with that one? It's like a Resident Evil that's like in the swamps, in the southern swamps, and it's like you're in this house with like weird redneck people. It really reminds me of that. Are we ready for Rush?
I think we're ready for Rush. Shall I now invite Keith in since he can give us a little intro why he picked it?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, honestly. I'd probably seen Rush more than once. I've probably seen it like 2 or 3 times before this.
I did think it was a bit of a strange pick until I started watching it. Then, like the scene where the teacher is killed.
That's what I was just thinking about. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty graphic.
No, it is. That's honestly what stuck in. That's what I remembered the most from this episode was that scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always felt bad for that teacher.
Yeah.
Even though he was a dick. But
he was a dick, but he didn't do that.
But that kid was an asshole. And I don't blame him for giving an F.
Yeah.
There he is.
There.
Hello, welcome to the Shitty X-Files podcast.
I'm excited to be here, yeah.
Yeah.
You're excited to be on our shitty podcast?
Yeah, it's a good pod. I don't know.
It's episode 7.
I mean, I know it's on brand to be shitty, but I feel like you're being hard on your pod. It's better than a lot of pods.
You're an avid listener?
I have listened to every episode, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, we welcome you. And
thank you, yeah.
You wanted to get in on adding an episode when we said that we were going to watch a couple of creepy episodes, right?
Yeah, so I bandwagoned hard because I had like FOMO, but I feel like I picked the shittiest episode of the 3 of you for sure. And it wasn't even that creepy. I remember it being creepier, but I don't want to jump in ahead of where you want me to go.
Well, where we are, we haven't talked about it yet. We were wanting some background on why you selected the episode.
Well, because I heard I was jealous. You guys were saying you had 2. You were like, oh, I got to watch these 2. And I always watch what she's watching, right? Like if you've discussed that you got to watch some, I usually bandwagon on the side or coattail, I guess, more so, and watch what she's watching. And it's spooky season. We were looking for spooky stuff to watch. So for those reasons, you guys were doing that. And then I just wanted to be part of it. And I remember mine being spooky. We also sometimes just watch Spooky X-Files. We looked at the list that she showed too. There was a tweet, right, that had a bunch at the top. 30 or however. Yeah. So we've watched a lot of those already. So I didn't want to pick, I wanted to pick a spooky one. I remembered this one being spookier. And I know I haven't watched this one in a long time and it stuck out in my memory. But then my memory of it was a lot better than the episode was. I think I did like a headcanon thing. Like the ideas in it are cool.
That's totally fair. It is better, honestly, than what I remember it being. Like the actings can be questionable with some of the chilled kids. But yeah, I think the story and the overall concept is pretty cool, and it had some good effects as well.
I think part of my nostalgia for it is that I was probably like 11 or 12 when I first watched it, and then I maybe saw it once again in my 20s, and then not again since. So I think if you're 12 and you're not like weirded out by the fact that everyone who's supposed to be 17 is like 35 as depicted on screen, and like also like everyone is very television, right? Like outside of the principal cast of the show, all of the bit players that are in this are like TV as fuck and like very 90s energy too, right? Like they've got like Saved by the Bell energy, but then like edgy and shit. Like they're all archetypes, and especially the main, like the cop's son that's the main guy, and it is way too old. Way too old.
He's
to be
so old.
Yeah, and is doing like cringe, like cool guy shit. But I that probably just washed over me, and I thought he was cool or whatever and edgy when I first watched it. I was like, I wish I had time powers. It also felt very Buffy the Vampire Slayer to me in watching it. It's like it had that goofy energy kind of. Yeah.
Jeremiah said the same thing, that it felt like Buffy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it holds up as like a Buffy episode that never was, but there's so many better Spooky X-Files episodes.
There are better Buffy episodes, too.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, every one of them is spooky too, right? By nature of the genre. But I don't know. I will defend some of the elements. The ideas are cool. They remain cool. The idea that you can go into this, even with how they leave it at the end, where like maybe it's only affects teenagers or whatever, that also probably appealed to 12-year-old me. Or it's like, oh, you're special as a teenager.
Yeah.
It's too bad they pumped it full of concrete.
Yeah. I just think they didn't spend enough time exploring the phenomenon. Like there's something about the woods, and we don't know what's about the woods until he goes in and stands in the light beam and like shakes all crazy. But that's at like minute 35. Like they
might even be further. It's very deep in, yeah.
More time, like even in the teaser, it's just him in the woods, and then the sheriff's deputy is dead. It's like you could have shown something from the cave, even exiting the cave. I don't know, something. I didn't like that they didn't give more about the phenomenon or the cave or whatever. It was slow in that sense.
The teaser didn't really like put forth very well what happened, because I didn't remember that he pushed that thing through that guy's head basically until they talked about it later, and they didn't really even show it in the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, there's like a quick cut where his face is all like gone, and so if you notice that, I guess it's supposed to be way out of hand for whatever. And it's like noiseless too, right? There's kind of, because the focus is on the young teenage guy at the car,
yeah,
and then whatever happens to the cop is off screen and happens very abruptly. But yeah, there's a few innovative moments actually deeper in the episode in terms of how they depict the fastness, whatever it is, the effect of being in that beam. Like not just where the kids twitch and all weird. That's actually kind of whack. But that when they are showing the perspective shots and it kind of like drifts, it does like the Nightcrawler thing a couple times. And there's even a pre-Matrix, I think, bullet time shot in there too, right? Like not where you don't get a lean back or whatever, but when the girl moves in front of the bullet at the end, I thought that was pretty neat.
It was like the same year as the Matrix. It was probably shot before Matrix was released, because that was 99, right?
Yeah.
I did think that the effects were well done. Like Mulder's really analyzing that tape with his buddy Chuck, and there's like one frame of like, I thought that they could have done a little bit more there, but in general, I thought that they'd done a good job with those.
I actually appreciated that scene because it was way more realistic than like what CSI does, where they take something like that and they're like, I'm gonna enhance this and then like create a whole new picture. And here's a picture of the guy, and there's his face. Like, they didn't do that. They just kind of, like, changed some color aspects and whatnot.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah. I thought it was hilarious that her name was Chastity. Like, what a name to pick for...
they name check her a lot, too. Like, it's important that it's Chastity, I guess, right? Like, from a writer's perspective, they keep saying
that is a very 90s name, yeah.
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 And this has the line of like, you were a Betty back in the day.
Oh my god. That was so cringy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Who
that
wrote this?
wasn't period slang either. Like, I was alive
No.
then. No one was a Betty. Like, we
No
weren't saying
one
that shit.
said that word.
No.
No.
They say that shit in Wayne's World, don't they? They
A
call
Betty?
people Betties.
I don't even know what that's from.
That sounds like a Wayne's World thing. It does, yeah.
I don't know. I've watched Wayne's World a lot. I don't think it's from
You do
there.
know most of the lines. I feel like it's like 50s period slang, though, right? It's definitely not
That's like a 50s, 60s thing. That is
Yeah.
not a late 90s, almost 2000s word. No way.
Should we write David Amon, who wrote this? A man? I don't know who wrote this episode.
Does he have any other credits?
I don't know. But did you notice that they wrote Mulder checking out the blonde teenager?
Ew, yeah. How much
yeah.
do you want to bet that was David being David?
Ugh.
Yeah, that was weird, I thought.
But then Scully, Gillian Anderson reacts to it.
Oh, I feel like it's a fully scripted moment, even if
it had to be.
It had to be, because it's like the teen is checking him out too, but then it's strange. But they remark on it. There's like dialogue exchanged or something, right? Or
it's very pre-California
slap or something.
Yeah.
Does have that moody energy, yeah.
Yeah. I did like the throwback to the forest milieu. Like in the early seasons, they spent a lot of time in the forest. And by the time we get to season 7, they're not in the forest as much. So I did appreciate sort of a throwback to their forest roots.
Mm. I made a note that having no one driving with no one in the driver's seat while I'm a passenger is my worst nightmare. I have a lot of nightmares about that.
Interesting.
Do you guys remember mid-2000s, or when was it? I think it was mid-2000s. There was this movie called Jumper with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Okay, so the movie was trash, but I think they were trying to like make a whole franchise out of that, right? They were trying to make it a thing, like make Jumper happen. And most of the car scene thing is replicated in that as like a major plot point in Jumper, right? So yeah, there's a lot of like, as much as there's bad imagery in the episode and lazy shots and stuff, there's a bunch of really cool things that I feel like showed up in other better stuff later, and they were ahead of the curve on that, right? So that was interesting to me. I was so disappointed when we got 15 minutes in, because I remembered it being like spooky and edgy and engaging, and while the ideas are cool, it just had a whackness that I don't remember. Right? Like, I wanted it to be a spook. Both of you guys picked like genuinely creepy episodes, I feel like. Even the ridiculous premise of there being a slug monster, they managed to execute in a creepy fashion, right? Like, there's a TNG episode of this that has like the same slug monster almost exactly. The prop is the same. Oh. But it's much more hokey, right? Like, it gives whoever it's in super strength, and so it's in like this old guy, and he's doing big, theatrical kicks and kicking Riker across the Enterprise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it isn't creepy, even though the premise is supposed to be. But the X-Files does the slug monster thing creepy.
And you want to make a few more comments on the eps? We already talked about them, but you're welcome to make any comments on. Let's start with Roadrunners, because you talked about the slug.
I think it pulls off like a very like B-level premise in a way that manages to be creepy, right? Like, that could be like with that episode description, you would figure it would have more of a comedic tone than it does, which they often use on X-Files too, right? To get through a goofy thing, they lean into the comedy of it.
A wacky episode, yeah.
Yeah, but they don't do that. My only gripe, even during it, was that the Doggett just saves the day by being a cop, like canonically, like he just like knows somehow through cop instinct or whatever, and otherwise everyone would be dead. So that was a little convenient, but I thought it was good. I thought it was a very, like, for something that's almost all Scully all the time, it was cool. Good episode.
I will defend Doggett, I guess. Like, I think that's how he's written largely.
Oh yeah, he should be more interesting than he is, right? Like, and I get that they wanted him to not be interchangeable with Mulder, and they're like, the same size and shape of dude, and so they've got to like give him a very distinct personality that doesn't just sit in this shit. But I don't know. He's an asshole for like 2 episodes when he shows up, and then he almost immediately stops being an asshole, and he's just like this one-tone cop guy the whole time, from my perspective. And I like Robert Pattinson a lot, and I wish the Doggett character was cooler.
Robert Patrick.
Or
how did you feel about his performance, about cutting Scully open at the end with his cop powers. Like, that was like a clean surgery. And then
The whole ending is a bit weird. There's a lot going on,
he shoots
right?
it.
Well, and he ascertains immediately that by shooting it, somehow everyone else has de-escalated their threat to, like, just the whole thing plays out weird. I think it's weird the minute Scully suggests that they get in the bus instead of his car. Like, she's like, I know a closer vehicle or something, right? Because his car is way down the road. But then we talked about this at the time. Like, it's in a barn with the door closed. And it's a giant 50s bus that's going to make all this noise and shit. So just like, it seemed, the whole thing seemed weird. But they wanted the staging of it, right? They wanted all those people leaving the bus at the end, dejected, and, you know, him walking out. Like, that's even the still on the menu, is him carrying her down the road afterwards, right?
It's kind of similar to her birth scene.
Yeah, good call.
It is unsettling when the guy gets hammer murdered at the end. And then she's screaming about how she's pregnant. Like, they let her scream long enough that it goes on longer than you would think it would be. And you have to sit with the discomfort of it for a bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've come to the conclusion that maybe the slug is her child's father.
Like, it's not Cigarette Man, it's actually Slug guy? Or just Slug
creature.
As far as we're concerned.
Slug magic? Is the slug Jesus? Yes or no?
Yeah. Depends on who you're asking, right? Probably. Might as well be Jesus.
I think so.
So she's like touched by Christ now? And like weird Slender Man Mulder child is yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, her child is the son of Christ.
So why is he Slender Man then? Like, why does he do that? I don't know. Shouldn't he be doing salvation and not? I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about where the show's at now.
For both of you, if you're giving out alien stickers for this episode, you get 5 alien stickers, and you can put them on the script of this episode. Roadrunners, how many alien stickers are you giving it?
Is it the same as Stars, but they're alien stickers?
Yeah.
Okay, so Roadrunner, it's a 3.5 to 4 alien sticker ep, I would say. Probably 4, solid 4.
Is that same?
Yeah, I'd say same. I'd say 4.5, just because I really like this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it 4 too. Rush, I give fewer alien stickers. Like, I'm probably giving Rush fair. Like a 2.5. Like, it's not a failing episode.
It's a solid 3.
I'd give it a 3. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then we haven't gotten your take on Irresistible, Keith.
So also creepy. Successfully meets the brief of being a creepy ep. I was unclear about how supernatural it really is or not. It's not quite clear whether they're implying that he is an embodiment of like all or some sort of intergenerational malevolence or something, or if it's just that Scully is triggered and so she sees him that way a few times. Because she sees there's like a demon suit that they fully have someone in a couple times in this episode,
looks really
right?
Good.
Yeah, it's a good effect. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And there's even another effect that they do, I think, where they show a bunch of different non-demon like humans that he was, right? Like they kind of show different people who were killers. Maybe
what was that?
Like they all looked like. To me, my interpretation of that was that they were lookalikes of different known serial killers. Like there was a Charles Manson looking guy, and there was a David Ramirez looking guy. So I thought they were trying to telegraph that like this guy embodies the energy of serial killers, like as a abstract force or something like that. But then also like Scully would know that, like a forensic person would know that. This is also one of the more like Mindhunter-y, procedurally X-Files-y FBI things, or less X-Files-y, more FBI things, right? Like this could be in a whole other show as well. And I think it's pretty good at doing the creepy, just forensically creepy thing without needing to be supernatural. But then maybe interesting and elevated by the supernatural thing, if that's really in there. I don't know. Better than Rush though. 4 stickers.
4 stickers.
Yeah.
I'm torn, like between 3.5 and 4, just because I like the sequel better. Do you remember the sequel, Keith?
So I know that there is one, and so it's on our short list to watch. And so I think that elevates it just because there's only a handful of things that ever get sequelized too, right?
Yeah.
I think there's only 3 or 4 that I can think of where they recur. It has some of that Tombs energy too, right? In terms of it's another one where Scully's getting predated by a weirdo who takes a notice to her and stuff, and yeah. So yeah.
Well, I give Irresistible on the creep scale. I'm giving it 4.5. Not, for an episode and how it makes me feel, like just genuinely, truly, legitimately, like nauseous. That's why I'm going to give it an upper number of alien stickers. All right. Well, Keith, we appreciate your participation.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me be part of it. I'm sorry I picked kind of a dud, but
all good.
It definitely wasn't creepy. I could have done better for creep. So, if you're willing to have me back sometime when you're doing premise episodes, I'll try and pick a better one.
Yeah, we were thinking of doing holidays, like maybe a Christmas one.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one amazing Christmas.
Is there?
One, right?
There's really just one, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
There's a couple.
All right.
So I don't think they'll be picking. It'll just be like selecting them from the list of the Christmas ones. Like Emily is a Christmas one. Obviously the Christmas one. Yeah, and then I think there's another conspiracy one that takes place at Christmas time. But there's always next year. We'll pick another set of creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any set of 3, right? Like best comedic episodes you could do. Anyway, I don't want to step all over your premises.
That's a good idea.
Anyway, well, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Our first guest on the Shitty X-Files podcast.
Yeah.
That seemed to go okay.
Yeah. I kind of get what he was saying about how, like, he remembers Rush being, like, better. Because I think I kind of remember it being creepier and have more going on, too.
Yeah. Same. Let's see. We've been going almost an hour.
Okay. Do you want to cut?
Well, let's talk about, I hope to get it all edited and out by Halloween. Do you think doing a Christmas one is worth doing? Is that the next time we'll get back together? Or do you want to stick comedy episodes in between?
Is there going to be enough for Christmas episodes, do you think?
I think I can dig out 3 Christmas episodes.
Okay. Oh, right. Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, which is the Emily one, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Right. There's also that one. There's that one where that guy plays Santa Claus, and like has abducted those children.
Oh yeah. I think that has to do with Mulder's sister too.
It does. I'm pretty sure.
Closure? Is that Closure?
Is that Closure? I couldn't remember if that was Closure, if that was a episode before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good one. So we could do those. We could also do like a palate cleanse after the spooky season and do comedy ones.
Yeah, I'm down
Depends
for
how
that.
much energy we have. Let's talk.
Yeah, I'll take time.
Hold on, let me just Google that. X-Files Santa Claus. Sign in Zeit?
That sounds right. Is it season 6 or 7?
7.
7, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So a Christmas one is totally possible.
Okay. Something else that just occurred to me is why were all those people so calm and just non-aggressive about him destroying their savior?
Right?
Because they sure as shit didn't mind gouging into people's backs for it. So I don't know.
I think it must be that the savior was mind controlling them, and then once it was dead, they didn't know what to do with themselves because they were released from its mind control. That's the only way it makes sense. Because otherwise,
is there a Trump allegory in that somewhere?
Oh shit! On that note,
anyway, we made this.
We made this.